Kolo Yahweh, Vashem, Hamashiach, Wamalak Yahweh Shai, Shabbat, Shalom, family. All praise to the Most High, going all throughout across the nation. Another blessed Shabbat.
Mm.
We here, Lord willing, with a pre-camp lesson. All praise to the Most High, moving through the Spirit. We're going to be getting into the book of Romans, chapter 11, in-depth breakdown. And it's Israelites, Gentiles. Can Israelites be Gentiles? Roman 11, in-depth breakdown. O.F.I. Sergeant Yahawada or Emmanuel. All praise to the Most High.
Khan, Shabbat, Shalom, family. All praise to the Most High. O.F.I. General Nakamaya. All praises. And we're going to try to be doing these more often too. Lord willing, moving through the Spirit in our milk and meat series, breaking down some things. Some things are milk and some things are meat. We're going to get a bit into the meat of the precepts today. Khan?
God,
All praises. So let's kick it off. Romans chapter 11 from the top.
God. Oh, Salaki, I got to pull up the blue letter.
All
One more
praises. All praises.
Bear with me 1 second.
You got it. Make sure too, man, y'all subscribe, family, to all of the O.F.I. social media. Only for Israel. O.F.I. only for Israel. If you look at the bottom of this live, we got the IG, the Twitter, the YouTube channel is growing. Trying to just push out the ministry. They got the O.F.I. Camp line as well. If you have any questions or if you're interested in joining O.F.I. in any city that you're in, right? We also got the mobile app that should be live, Lord willing, top of next week. So, by next Shabbat, it should be live, the O.F.I. app on the websites that are available on the bottom of the screen, Most High willing. So let's get to it. So kicking it off, the book of Romans, chapter 11, verse 1.
And Salakia, King, real fast.
Uh-huh.
Before the brother gets started, I want to make a quick point. As we can see at the top of Romans 11 and 1, the whole context of this chapter is Israel is not cast away. If everyone could see this headline right here at the top of the chapter, Israel is not cast away. Keep that in mind as the context of the chapter as we go into this breakdown, Lord willing. You got it, King.
Kind of, and that's very important to know as well, because in the context of, matter of fact, let's get the classic. Let's get 2 Peter 3 and 15. Because if you are unlearned and what's going on, right, as far as the history, as far as that there is a northern, that there's a southern kingdom, if you unlearn in these things and these matters, you already going to be tripped up, right? And that's what happens in Christianity, is that they're unlearned in the practicality and the history of the scriptures. So they're already tripped up from the beginning, and they get tripped up by Paul's letters because they don't understand what's going on. So we're going to get this 2 Peter 3 and 15 to kick it off, to just as a warning what the rock of the church said concerning Paul's letter, who was the author of Romans. We got 2 Peter 3 and 15.
God, this is 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 15. And account that the long suffering of our Lord is salvation,
Uh-huh.
even as our beloved brother Paul, also according to the wisdom giveth unto him, hath written unto you.
Now, Paul's writing unto you, right, unto the Israelites that are scattered throughout Rome, okay, according to the wisdom. Now, mind y'all as well, Paul wasn't writing from the book of Romans, right? Paul was writing with the Torah, the Tanakh, the prophets, you know what I'm saying, the Psalms, the so-called Old Testament. Read on.
God, also as also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, and which are some things hard to be understood.
Hard to be understood. And that's why the brother so eloquently, all praise to the Most High, pointed out to you that this context of Romans 11 is talking about Israelites, right? Israelites. Read on.
Which they that are unlearned and unstable rest,
Uh-huh.
as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction.
Also unto their own destruction. So we just want to put that as a warning, right? And it's not our words. This is the words of Peter. giving you that warning that when you read these Pauline epistles, that you have to read them in context based on the history, and you have to have an understanding of knowing that some things Paul write and the style of how he writes it may have you confused and thinking that he's actually saying something that he's not. You got it, King.
God, all praise to the Most High. All right, going back to Romans chapter 11. All praise to the Most High. So we're gonna start at the top of the chapter. All praises. We're gonna, Lord willing, get an in-depth breakdown. Might come out to being a part two. Lord willing, however the spirit move, however the time is going, we're gonna, Lord willing, try our best to edify the nation with this stumbling block that seems to be on our people and even of the other nations, because they come here and they get a false understanding of what's going on. Then doctrine after doctrine is created. Then our people become indoctrinated. So it's just a stumbling block for everyone, but more importantly for our people, the Israelites. All praise to the Most High. So we're gonna get into it. So we go in Romans chapter 11 from the top. It says, "I say then, hath God cast away His people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin." Right? So you see that? Paul is off the rip. Remember, the context is Israel not cast away. Letting you know, he saith, hath God cast away his people? That's a question, but it's a rhetorical question because Paul already knows the answer. But he expounds, God forbid. So the Most High Yahweh forbids that we shall be cast away, right? It says, "For I also am an Israelite." So Paul's letting you know his lineage, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So Paul is an Israelite, and he's giving you the understanding that Israelites have not been cast away, for he himself is an Israelite, writing unto you to try to get you to gain understanding of what's being said, what's going on. All right.
And two, King, real quick. Salakia, should have called this before. Let's get the book of Romans. Let's get chapter 10, verses 17 through 21 as well. Because to understand the context of why is Paul writing about is Israel cast away, notice that chapter 11 comes after chapter 10. So when we look at the bottom of chapter 10, starting with verse 17, it says, "So then faith cometh by hearing," Romans 10 and 17, "and hearing by the word of God. But I say, have they not heard?" Talking about the Israelites. "Yes, verily their sound went out into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world. But I say, did not Israel know?" So it's even showing you the context of who this is talking about and why, when we get to chapter 11, is the context about is Israel cast away? Is Israel, as Paul say, has God forsaken Israel? God forbid, because this is going into how Israel was stiff necked, right? It says, "But I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation I will anger you. But Isaiah is very bold and saith, I was found of them that sought me not. I was made manifest of them that asked not after me. But to Israel he saith, all day long I have stretched forth my hands unto a disobedient and a gainsaying people." So when we get to Romans 11 and 1, we already know that from the previous chapter that it was going into the context of Israel being stiff-necked and not want to take heed to the words of the Most High. That's why when we get to Romans 11 and 1, and he asks, has God cast away Israel because they were stiff-necked and they wasn't obedient? And God forbid. You got it, King.
God, all praise to the Most High. All praise. That's a great point. Furthermore, set in that context of understanding what's being talked about and who is being targeted at. Right. So we're getting back into Romans chapter 11, and we're going to get into verse 2. All right. In depth breakdown, Lord willing. It says, "God hath not cast away his people, which he foreknew.
Hmm.
What ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and dig down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. You got it, King.
Kind. I think that a big thing in this as well is when we go back precept upon precept. Let's get real quick Jeremiah 31 and 35 to really echo in on that. Then we'll go ahead and get that Jeremiah and that Isaiah Salaki and that Isaiah. So this Jeremiah 31, 35 through 37 echoes in on that, because once again, Paul is teaching the Israelites that are scattered throughout Rome based on the, so what you would call the so-called Old Testament, right? So we got Jeremiah 31 and 35 says, "Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. If these ordinances," now you got to understand, the Most High have set these ordinances. When you go to, it's funny, me and my wife, I took a little vacation a couple years ago, took the children out to out LA, right? And as we sitting looking at the ocean, I was telling her that it's amazing how no matter how much the ocean roars, hey, the ocean does not go past that shoreline. Even if there's a hurricane and all those things, hey, the water still ends up receding back to that boundary that the Most High has set, right? So that's an ordinance that the Most High has set. It says, uh Salakia. It says, verse 36, "If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. Thus saith the Lord, if heaven above can be measured, which we know it can't, and the foundation of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, saith Yahweh." And we know, playing up on tables, hey, I don't give a damn about NASA. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Elon Musk shooting all types of rockets in the sky, saying that they know all this science to measure and to search out the heavens and the depths of the earth with all they damn what is it called, submarines and technology. They can't do that. So we
Right.
know that the Most High is not casting away Israel. You got it, King.
All praise to the Most High. And going into the brother's point of who Paul is speaking to, now we're going to have to reiterate this many times, Lord willing, so everyone can, have a great understanding of the context. I'm going to start at Romans chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, Paul, a servant of Yahushua HaMashiach, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of God. Right? So Paul is a servant and he's called to be an apostle. He's called to speak the word, right? But we have to always understand who Paul is speaking to. We're going to jump down to verse 7. It says, to all that be in Rome. Now, mind you, this is a breakdown of Romans chapter 11. Not only did we have you to understand the context of Romans 11 by how it's titled, but even going back to the start of the book of Romans to get you to understand everyone that's being addressed, right? So it says, to all that be in Rome, beloved of God, called to be saints, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Yahushua Hamashiach. So, real quick, we're going to get the classic Psalms chapter 50 and verse number 5. God, it says, Psalms 50 and 5, gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. We know that the Most High made a covenant with the children of Israel by sacrifice. We can see that in many different scriptures, but the first to come to mind is Hebrews 8 and 8, when it's talking about the new covenant, but it's referencing that old covenant that Yahweh made with Israel, that new covenant and that old covenant, which will still remain with the children of Israel. So just giving more context even to understanding who Paul is talking to, who these epistles are going out to. So you do not be confused when you're reading, right? Because, like the brother went into, you can easily be confused by Paul's writings. Do you have something else you wanted to go, King?
Yeah, let's just, since we called it, let's pull up that Hebrews 8 and 8,
God.
just to prove all things, Lord willing.
All right. This is Hebrews chapter 8, and we'll start at verse 7. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For,
Con. So
God.
it's referencing that first covenant being the covenant that we see in the so-called Old Testament. The first covenant that was made with, because there was multiple covenants, right? You got the covenant that was made with Adam. You had a covenant of Noah, right? Then you got the covenant of Abraham, and then you got the covenant of Jacob, of the Israelites, which is an extension of the covenant of the Abrahamic covenant. So it's referring back to that first covenant that was made at Sinai. Go ahead.
God. For finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah.
Man, that's playing upon tables right there. Who that covenant is for? The house of Israel and with the house of Judah, but not according to what, Malak?
Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers,
But who
and
fathers?
with their fathers.
With their fathers, right? Not according to that covenant, right? That he made with their fathers. And I want to grab this quick precept right quick. This quick precept. Um, because we see the context in terms of I'll come back to this precept. I wanted to grab this quick precept, but we see the context in terms of who the covenant was made with their fathers, which are the Israelites, referring back to the covenant on Sinai. Go ahead.
God. Read on in Hebrews.
Khan King.
God. In the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord.
Bam. And that's playing up on table. Still talking about the Israelites. So even we see the so-called Old Testament and the so-called New Testament, they go hand in hand, right? We see that the covenant still in the New Testament is referring back to the old covenant and of the same people of the Israelites. You got it, King.
God, and two, before we leave here, I want to make this point. In the back half of verse 9, it says, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not. A doctrine is created just off that alone. Imagine being able to take half of a verse and creating a doctrine out of it. So because here and other places it says, because they continued not in my covenant and I regarded them not, a whole doctrine of Israel has been cast away. Israel has been cut off. It's now open to other people because Israel messed up. It was supposed to only be for them, but they followed not in his covenant, or they did not believe on Christ, or they just a whole bunch of different things come about. They create a doctrine out of it saying that Israel's been cast away. And that's why we even have to go into breakdowns like this to help our people understand what Romans 11 is even being spoken of. Now, as we continue to read, it says, saith the Lord. It says, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. So if they had any type of substantial point with their false ideologies or false narratives, false doctrines that they try to create, then why is this saying for after those days, the Most High will still, yet and still, make a covenant with Israel after those days? If we're cut off because we continue not in his covenant, if we're done because the Lord said I regarded them not, meaning he just punished us for a time period, which we see all throughout all of the scriptures. We got to understand that throughout all of the scriptures, Israel is being punished. Let me bring it back. Israel is being told to do something. Israel may fall short. Israel is being punished. Then Israel is being brought back. Same thing we see over and over and over again. Now, as the brother went into that Jeremiah 31, it gave great examples of how, if, and I'm paraphrasing, if let me go back to that real quick. Salaki, I'll come right back to this, Lord willing. It was Jeremiah 31 and 35, I believe.
God.
It says, "Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and ordinances of the moon, and of the stars in a light by night, which divideth the sea, when the waves thereof roar, the Lord of hosts is his name. If those ordinances depart before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever." So it's giving you basically, it's worded so beautifully that it's basically saying, if something that's impossible will take place, then something else that's impossible, meaning Israel will be cast off from the Most High, will no longer be his children, no longer be his people. If something impossible like that takes place, then something else that's impossible will also take place. So the fact that they get these whacked out doctrines and they're created from Salaki, going back to Hebrews chapter 8, they're created from, even they can just take half of a verse and create a major stumbling block for our people when it says they continue not in my covenant and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. You got to keep reading. You have to understand the full context. You got to understand that what the brother was saying, this is reiterating what was already said in the so-called Old Testament. So you just got to put it all together and understand that the Lord said, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. That was said in the so-called Old Testament. It's being reiterated in the so-called New Testament. You got it, King.
Kind and let's grab real quick Exodus 24 and 6. Exodus 24 and 6. Because reiterating on that the covenant that we see in Exodus in the so-called Old Testament, right? We're gonna go Exodus 24 and 6, and it says, actually, I'm gonna start with verse 4 for context. And Moses wrote all the words of Yahweh and rose up early in the morning and builded an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. So we see the context is the 12 tribes of Israel, who this covenant is for. We see Moses, right? We know that this is, excuse me, this is in the wilderness. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offer burnt offerings and sacrifice peace offerings of oxen unto Yahweh. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altars, and took the book of the covenant
Mm,
and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, all that the Lord Yahweh have said will we do and be obedient. So we see the covenant, the sacrifice happened, right? The children of Israel entered into a covenant by blood with the Most High God Yahweh. Verse 8, and Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. So we see right here in Exodus, the 24th chapter, we see that covenant that's being referred to in Jeremiah 31 and 31 and Hebrews 8 and 8. You got him a lot.
God. Hey, all praise to the Most High. Beautiful precepts. All praise to the Most High, man. We got to get this thing right. We can't be easily beguiled by these false understandings. And we got to know that the Most High, hey, he loves Israel. And he will forever love Israel. All praise to the Most High. If the Most High stopped loving Israel, or if your understanding is that he stopped loving Israel, then you would be making the Most High a liar.
That's right.
All right, keep that in mind. All praise to the Most High. So we're going back to Romans chapter 11, and we'll read verse 3 over, and then we'll continue on. Romans 11 and 3. Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. Right? It says, but saith the answer of God unto him, I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed to the knee of the image of Baal. So, what the Most High is saying here is he's reserved to himself men who will not be tainted, who will not succumb and be victim to these false doctrines and bow to the knee of these false images, get up in awe to these man made religions and things of that nature. Men that are going to stand tall, stand strong, and teach and preach the word of Yahweh Shem Shah. Right? You got something, King?
Con, let's get First Kings 19 and 18 because is that 1918 or is that 18? Is that 1918 I'm looking for? Yeah. No, that's First Kings 18 and 18 I want. Yeah, we're
18
gonna
and
get
18.
18 and 18.
All right. First Kings, chapter 18.
Slocky King, Slocky, my bad. Slocky. It is 19 and 18 I'm looking for. It is
Okay.
19 and 18.
Salaki.
Because what the king is going into, what he just brought out in that verse 3, Paul, once again, we're gonna keep reiterating this. The context of who Paul is speaking to are the children of Israel. And even when he's quoting from the so-called Old Testament, right, in relation of things that were specifically only for the children of Israel, right? So
God.
in this First Kings 19 and 18, I'm gonna start with 17. And it shall come to pass that him that escapeth the sword of Hazael shall Jehu slay, and him that escapeth from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha slay. Yet, verse 18, I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which have not kissed him. So we see that the Most High, through His grace, has always left a remnant according to grace, and this is what our beloved brother Paul is getting into his bag about in his letter to the Israelites who are scattered throughout Rome. You got it, King.
God. God. All praise to the Most High. Man, his word is so mighty. All right, let's get back into it, Lord willing. So we're at verse 5, Romans 11 and 5. Even so, then, at this present time also, there is a remnant according to the election of grace. And we know that, let's just get into it though. Let's get Zechariah chapter 13, Lord willing, talking about this remnant, right? Zechariah chapter 13 and verse 8. It says, and it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, two parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. Right? So that's two parts of Israel, understanding that there's one third that is going to be reserved as that elect. And we know that the 144,000, 12,000 men of each tribe will be the elect of the elect. It says, and I will bring the third part through the fire, and I will refine them as silver is refined, and I will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them, and I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. Hey, all
Mm.
praise to the Most High, man. Just quickly going into that remnant that's being spoken of, and Lord willing, we can be a part of that remnant, right? That's being spoken of in verse number 5, according to the election of grace. And you know what? Let's also get Romans chapter 9 real quick. Now we're going to be revisiting Romans 9, all praise to the Most High. But right now, we're just going to get into verse 11. It says, Romans 9 and 11, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. So we know that that's going into that election, that remnant that's going to remain. All praise to the Most High.
God. And the echo on that, that remnant, we even see that in let's grab that second Edges, the 9th chapter, when the Most High, when Edges is going into saying that, even I go with that Zechariah that you just brought out with that Zechariah 13, there's going to be more that are destroyed than that are saved, but it's still going to be that remnant. You know what I'm saying? That 1/3.
Uh, and call it one more time, King.
That second Edges 9 and 14.
Second
That's
address.
comforting, man. That's comforting to know that the Most High. You got to think the Most High, and I say I hate even saying stuff like this, right? Because I don't like fixing my mouth to say stuff like this. But you're saying the Most High. You got, if you think that the Most High is casting out Israel, you saying that the Most High is wicked, because you saying that the Most High broke his oath that he swore by himself. Remember, he said, I think this was I know it was in Genesis, where he said that there was no, when he was swearing the oath immediately originally with Abraham, that because there was none greater than himself, he swore oath by himself. So you're saying that if by the time we get into Romans, if the Most High cast out Israel, then you saying that the Most High is a liar, and lying is going off. So you saying that the Most High is wicked, and we know that's not so.
That's right.
Kind, it's not on the screen a lot.
Oh, hold on one second. Okay. What's on the screen right now?
Just us.
Okay, so lock it. Bear with me one second.
It's all good.
So, share screen. Microsoft tab.
Bam. There you got it. All right, Con. Second Esdras, chapter 9, and we're gonna start with verse 14. It says, Then answered I and said, I have said before, and now do speak, and I will speak it also hereafter, that there be many more of them which perish than of them which shall be saved. And that goes back what the brother was just bringing out in that Zechariah about it being a remnant, the same remnant that Paul is referring to. I yield, King.
God, all praise to the Most High. All praises. So let's get back into this. Romans chapter 11. All praises. And we're at verse number 6. It says, And if by grace, then is it no more of works? Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if it be, but if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more work. So let's get into the explanation of this, because
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those verses that Peter was warning us about, as far as how sometimes the way Paul could write could be confusing just by the first line. And if it be grace, then is it no more of works? Otherwise, grace be no more grace. So these creators of these false doctrines and ideologies will take that and they'll say, see, and they'll try to pair it with the precept to say, I shall not frustrate the grace of the Most High, or and things like that. And they'll try to say, see, if you're still trying to do the works, then you're making grace no longer to be a thing. You're pretty much saying, denouncing the grace. Hey, I don't want the grace, but you would be a fool, because you can't even be here without the grace of Yahweh by way of Hamashiach wa Malaki Shai. Right? So let's even get into Paul real quick. Romans chapter 3 and the last verse of Romans chapter 3. It says, Do we then make void the law through faith? Now, that faith is the faith in the grace, right? That they will refer to. It says, God forbid, yea, we establish the law. So, why would Paul be saying here that we establish the law? And then when we get into Romans chapter 11 and verse 6, He's saying it's there's no more works. I'm going to explain why. Let's go to Romans chapter 6. I'm going to explain why that's not happening here. It says from the top, what shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? So shall we continue in sin, meaning shall we no longer do the works because grace is now on the scene? We know that John chapter 1 and verse 17 tells us that Yahweh Shai came with grace and truth. We know that the truth is what pertain going back to Psalms, I believe it's chapter 119, that that truth is the law. It's the commandments of the Most High. So if he came with grace and truth, he came to bring you a time of grace to come back to the truth, which is the law. It says, God forbid, how shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? So let's keep going down. Let's go to verse 14. It says, for sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. Bam, that's another one. They say, okay, so we're no longer under the law. That lines up with what we just read in Romans 11. You see that? Because if we keep the law, then we're frustrating the grace. It says, what then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid. So therefore, let's go back to Romans 11. Let's go back to Romans chapter 11 and verse 6. And if by grace, then is it no more work, no more of works? Otherwise, grace be no more grace. But if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more work. And I can see how someone may read that and easily get confused. But what Paul is teaching you here is you cannot be saved by your works alone.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't believe on Yahweh Shai, you don't have faith in Yahweh Shai, and you're not accepting of the grace that's come by his by his sacrifice, then it doesn't matter anyway. You're done. You can be doing all the works in the world. Let's get John chapter 3 real quick. John chapter 3, and we're going to get verse 17. No, we're going to get verse 18. It says, he that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. So therefore, hey, there's nothing that you can do. There's no works that you can do that will alone, without being paired with faith, without being paired with faith and believing in that grace. There's no works that you can do alone to obtain salvation. So don't get confused when you read that in verse number 6 of Romans chapter 11 and think that you no longer have to do the work and that everything is solely and only about grace. You got it, King.
Con, con. I mean, you pretty much summed it up. I just want to grab one quick precept, the classic, that Revelations 14,
God.
right? Because we see how the king is just brought out. Paul's not telling you to do away with the law, right? God forbid, right? Paul is not teaching against what Yahweh Shai taught. Just to say it plain upon tables. And when you have that understanding that Paul is not against Yahweh Shai, then everything makes sense. But if you are teaching that Paul is saying something contrary to Yahweh Shai, you make Yahweh Shai a liar. You make the scriptures a liar. You make the word of God a liar, right? So we see in this Revelations 14 and 12 says, here is the patience of the saints. Now, mind you, when a brother brought out in Romans 1 and 1 to 3, right? We see that Romans was written to the saints. And when we went to that Psalms 50 and 5, we saw that the saints are those who made a covenant with the Most High God through sacrifice by blood. We went to the Exodus 24 and 7 on down, and we saw who that was. So when we go back here to this Revelations 14 and 12, here is the patience of the saints. This is talking about the Israelites. This is what the Israelites are patiently waiting for. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Yahweh Shai. So you see, when we went to back to that Romans 11, when we at that verse 6, it's not saying that you don't have to keep the commandments, because the saints are patiently waiting to keeping the commandments and having faith in Yahweh Shai. And we know that grace and truth came by Yahweh Shai, right? So we see how it all perfectly goes together. You got to keep the commandments. You got to have faith. You can't have faith alone, and you cannot have works alone. They got to go perfectly hand in hand in that balance. You got it, King.
God, all praise to the Most High. I'm gonna get one more on that too. That brings a lot of confusion unto our people because of these understandings that has been these false understandings that have been put out there. And I came for verse 4, but I'm gonna even start from the top. It says, "Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved." So before we even remind you, this is Romans chapter 10. We're breaking down Romans chapter 11. Paul's already saying in the very chapter before Romans 11 is that his heart's desire is that Israel might be saved. So even just bringing more context into everywhere we go in Romans, Paul is showing you that he's talking about Israel and only about Israel. It says, "For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge." And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help our people as far as the knowledge goes. Pair the knowledge with the zeal. Don't just have the zeal of the Most High to serve the Most High. You got to pair the knowledge with it. It says, "For they being ignorant of God's righteousness," meaning you don't understand what God's righteousness is. And we know in Psalms chapter 119, real quick, let's just get this. We'll come
That
right
verse
back to this.
142.
Kai, Psalms 119 and 142. We're going to get 42 and 72. It says, "Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth." So, for one, we're reading about us being ignorant of the Most High's righteousness. His righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and what he established as his righteousness is the law, which is the truth. Let's go down to verse 172. It says, "My tongue shall speak of thy word, for all thy commandments are righteousness." So when did it change? When did the Most High's righteousness change from the commandments to whatever in the world somebody wants to say that it is? It never changed. The Most High does not change. That's Malachi chapter 3 and verse 6. The Most High does not change. His righteousness is not changed. So getting back into Romans chapter 10 and verse 3, "For they being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness," and they even try to flip that on those who still keep the law, saying that we're establishing our own righteousness,
Mm-hmm.
as if the Most High didn't tell us that his righteousness is the commandments. So how are we trying to create or establish our own righteousness if we just going by what the Most High said is righteous? It says, "Have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God." So it's you that want to live on faith alone. It's you that mistake and frustrate the grace. That's what frustrating the grace really is. Abusing the grace, taking advantage of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And like the brother was saying before, it's some stuff that we don't even like to say, like to let come out of our mouth. So man, even saying taking advantage of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is vexing. But that's what you attempt to do when you try to establish your own righteousness and change things up. It says, "Have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. For Christ," is why I came here. "For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth." So you're taking this way, way, way out of context.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going back into what we were saying before. It's the end of the law for righteousness, meaning when Christ came, sacrificed, rose again, went back to the third heaven. It just means that you no longer can stand on the law alone and be deemed righteous for it. If you don't pair it with the faith, you don't pair it with the belief in that faith and that grace, then it doesn't matter how many works you do. because Hamashiach brought the end of the law for righteousness when he came with his sacrifice. So, Lord willing, everybody has a clear understanding of that. We're going to get back into this Romans 11. I'm going to read it and you got it, King.
Con, con.
It says, Romans chapter 11 and verse 7. What then? Israel have not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded.
And this is going into, let's get at Isaiah 29 and 10 through 11. This is going to the Most High, once again, dealing with that remnant, because we do know that there was a northern and there's a southern kingdom, right? You had certain Israelites that had gone off into idolatry, that weren't even considered Israel anymore in terms of they're still bloodline Israelites. So I don't mean they weren't considered Israel as far as their bloodline, but they had gone off into idolatry into the other nations, right? The practices of the other nations. So Yahweh Shai was sent to reconcile them back. That's why you get the prophecies in Ezekiel the 37th chapter, the two sticks. This Isaiah 29 and 10, and it reads, "For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and have closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered, and the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed." Right? So this is going into right here the Israelites that the Most High, he didn't cast them off as a whole, but just how I said in that Romans, that hey, that remnant he's only dealing with at this point, because the other ones were deaf, dumb, and blind, you
That's right.
know, and he had closed their understanding. They went off into idolatry. You got it, King.
No, Khan, all praise to the Most High. And I'll give one precept on that. Um, let's get Deuteronomy 29.
Mm.
This is quite simple, man. Deuteronomy 29 and verse 4. It says, Yet the Lord have not given you an heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear unto this day. Hey, so if the Most High chooses to not give you eyes to see and ears to hear, let's even get that um, second Thessalonians, I believe. If he chooses not to give you the eyes to see and the ears to hear, then you're just simply not going to understand it. Salaki, maybe it's
You want
first.
that
That's
5:11?
is that first? Is it first? Let me see. Two. I'm looking for where he strong delusion. Thought it was second Thessalonians. Most High put on you a strong delusion. Salakia. Forgot I'm on the blue letter. All praise to the Most High.
No, it is. It is. It's 2 and 11. It's 2 and 11. You're thinking of
First Thessalonians 2 and
it's
11.
second. No, Second Thessalonians. You was right. It's 2 and
Second,
11.
second.
And then there's that other one in Isaiah. But I think you want this one at 2 and 11.
Second Thessalonians 2. Okay, kind, yep. Starting at verse 10, it says, And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness, and them that perish, there we see it again, that unrighteousness, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. We know that the truth is the commandments. The commandments is love, man. The Most High gave us the commandments and set us apart as a holy nation, giving us a holy heritage. If you can't see that as love, then Lord willing, we're gonna pray for you, man. It says, and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. And when the Most High put a strong delusion on you, hey, there's nothing that can be done about it. The Most High haven't applied that eye salve to your eyes, giving you eyes to see, then there's nothing that anybody can do about it. And I'm going to finish it in verse 12. It says, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth. We keep seeing that truth is the law, but had pleasure in unrighteousness, And then it's so it's double whammy in this precept, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth. We know that Christ is the truth. So if you believe not on Hamashiach, then you're damned, as we saw in John chapter 3, verse 19, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. We know righteousness is keeping the commandments. So it's literally pairing the two in this precept, believing on Hamashiach and keeping the Most High's righteousness, which is keeping the commandments. And it says they all be damned who do so not. All praise to the Most High, man.
Let's grab that another quick precept on this. Let's grab Acts the 28th chapter, because this
Con.
goes right there. I think we start with verse 23.
Okay, con.
Because
Acts.
like the king was just bringing out about that eye salve, right? This touches on that as well. This is a good cut. Acts 28 and 23. And when they had appointed him a day, there came many to him into his lodgings, to whom he expounded and testified the kingdom of God, persuading them concerning Yahweh, right? Both out of the law of Moses and out of the prophets, from morning till evening. So you got to think about what's going on, right? They're persuading to come back to Yahweh Shai. They're persuading on even on that grace, but also out of the law of Moses, because you got to keep the law. Let's jump down to verse 27. And I'll start with verse 26, saying, Go unto this people and say, Hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing you shall see and not perceive. And this is what happens when people bring out this Romans 11 chapter and they don't have that understanding. They saying that Paul is saying something that he's not saying. Back to that 2 Peter 3 and 15. You follow what I'm saying? It says, verse 27, For the heart of this people is wax gross, and their ears are dull of hearing. And this is the point when our brother was talking about the eye salve, needing that eye salve, which is Yahweh Shah. And their eyes have they closed. They got that strong delusion, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their heart and should be converted, and I should heal them. So this is also going into back the Most High only dealing with that remnant. Everybody, and we got to understand this, everybody's not going to get it. Be it known, therefore, unto you that the salvation of God is sent unto the Gentiles,
Mm.
and that they will hear it. Now, people will hear this Gentiles right here and think that it's talking about the other nations. But once again, the context of Romans 11, just like the whole context of the so-called New Testament, is going about the Gentiles, those Israelites who went into idolatry, right? He provoked the Jews by bringing the Gentiles, which are the other chiefly 10 tribes, and we know that there were some of southern kingdoms scattered in there as well, who were so-called Jews who weren't adhering to Jewry. And that's why it says in verse 29, and when he had said these words, the Jews departed and had great reasoning among themselves. So you got to think Paul is confounding them, saying, look, you know, just like, not to get too ahead, just like with Cornelius in Acts the 10th chapter, all of
Mhm.
these visions and similitudes and parables are going to the exact same thing, just like Matthew, the prodigal son. All of these are the same teachings on the same line. You got the Israelites who've gone off, right, in idolatry, and you got Yahweh Shai who died to reconcile and bring them back in. This is what Paul is talking about in Romans 11 when he's speaking about these Gentiles. You got it, Kate.
Con. Hey, all praise to the Most High, man. All praises. All right, let's get back into Romans 11, Lord willing. And we're at verse number 8. It says, According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears they should not hear, unto this day. It says, And David saith, Let their table be made a snare, and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them. Let their eyes be darkened, that they may not see, and bow down their back all way. And that's what's happened unto Israel.
Mhm.
That's exactly what's happened. Our eyes have been closed to this truth. Our understanding has been shut down. We've been discontinued. Let me get that real quick. To have an understanding of your heritage is something that's really taken for granted, because if the Israelites understood our heritage, then we would be so powerful as a nation all together. And just understanding that the Most High gave us, I'm gonna get two precepts. The Most High gave us His laws as a heritage. It says Jeremiah 17:4, and thou even thyself shall discontinue from thy heritage that I gave you. So we no longer have the knowledge of who we are. We don't know who our God is. We're easily succumb to any and everything that they teach us, as long as it makes us feel good. We no longer even want to. We've become so conditioned to what sounds good and hears good, that when the men of the Lord do come out to the highways and byways, do teach the truth. We got all type of platforms, YouTube, StreamYard, all type of truth is being given and spread across the nation, spread across the world unto the children of Israel. We've become so conditioned to being discontinued from our heritage that we shut our ears and we don't even want to hear the truth. Now we know that ultimately it's because the Most High has done the shutting of the eyes and the ears. He wants you to come back unto His word, though. All praise to the Most High. It says, and we can even rest on that. What was I about to get? So discontinue from thy heritage. It was something else that I wanted, but I forgot what precept that I even wanted to go to. You had something, King?
Nah, we can move forward, King. Lord willing.
All right, all praise to the Most High. All right, I'm gonna read on, and you got it. It says Romans chapter 11 and verse 11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles,
Hmm.
for to provoke them to jealousy. Now,
God.
real okay, you got it, King.
No, you got it, King. Go ahead. You got it. Hey, this right here is one of the ones that, hey, now everybody got their hands up. I see. I told y'all. See,
Yep,
he provoked them, he cast them away, and now he to the damn the other nations. You got it, King.
exactly. And two, when it say oh man, through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy. So you mean to tell me that out of all the prophecy that's before this, understanding that Paul is reiterating prophecy and he's teaching, remember the context back up at the top, Israel is not cast away. So if you allow yourself to be beguiled and get away from the context, then you may read this and think, well, you know what? Hey, they fell down. Hey, the Lord was no longer dealing with them, but we've already disproved that. And you would be calling Yahweh a liar. Let me show you who else you would be calling a liar to. Unless you don't believe that he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Matthew chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15, we're going straight to the point, verse 24. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And you can't see it right now, but this is red letter. This is the words of Yahweh Shai himself, that
God.
he's only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So you can't come here and let yourself be beguiled. Now, when it says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? You have to understand that this is not falling. It says, God forbid, but rather through their fall, I'm going to stop there. This is not falling from the promises. This is not falling from grace. This is not falling. If it was falling from all of those things, then it would disannul everything that the Most High has already said is to come to Israel. Now you got a big, big problem because you're making the prophets a liar. You're even going into that Matthew chapter 5 and verse 17, where Yahweh Shai said he came not to destroy the law or the prophets. So therefore, everything that is said still is going to come to pass. So if your understanding is that Israel as a whole fell, and Israel as a whole through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles, then you're sadly mistaken. You got to be able to break this verse down into understanding who fell first, what the result of that fall was, and who the Gentiles are. You got it, King.
Colin, let's get John 10. And that's a mighty breakdown what you just said on that, King. All praise to the Most High. That stumbling block, because you got to understand too, y'all. And this is the meat of it: is that Yahweh Shai to a lot of the Jews was that stumbling block because they believed on the law, but they didn't believe on Yahweh Shai. You see, they thought that they could. Hey, the Pharisees thought that they could, and all of the Pharisees did not believe on Yahweh Shai. You know what I'm saying? That's another lie that's taught, right? But Yahweh Shai was that stumbling block. Okay. And when he goes into when we get into this Romans right here, I mean, my bad, this John 10, we're gonna start with verse 14, Baba Kashai. This is showing to those Gentiles, it connects directly to those sheep that Yahweh Shai have that are of another fold. It's going into those same Gentiles that we was just bringing out in Romans 11. So John 10 and 14, I am the good shepherd. That's Yahweh Shai. And know my sheep and am known of mine. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Now we see King just brought out that Matthew 15 and 24, who he laid down his life for, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So this is the same context, right? And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Okay, now see, I told y'all, they just talking about the other nations. No, the other sheep that are not of this fold are those who went into idolatry, the Gentiles, the Israelite Gentiles. It says, also, I must bring, Salakia, and other sheep I have which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Notice too, when Yahweh Shai say he come to separate the sheep from the goats and sheep is two different animals, right? You got the sheep, which are the Israelites. You got the goats too, which are representative as well as the other nations. So the Most High has sent Yahweh Shai, the sheep master, the good shepherd, right, to bring those two folds back together. The Israelite Gentiles, who are called according to his purpose, who are predestinated, who are part of that remnant, with those in Jewry who believed on Yahweh Shai, right? And let's get that real quick. Let's get Ezekiel the 37th chapter. Because too, you know, people may say, well, all right, well, I hear y'all, it sounds good, but what about the other nations? You know, what about it says two nations, and show me where Israelites are called another nation, right? All right, Ezekiel 37, and we're gonna start with verse 15. And look, and notice the title. It says reunion of Judah and Israel. Okay. And we know that Yahweh Shai was sent to bring those two folds back unto one. And there'll be one master over those, one shepherd over those two folds. Salakia. Ezekiel 37 and 15. The word of Yahweh came again unto me, saying, moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah, southern kingdom, and the children of Israel, his companions. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his companions. So you see the two kingdoms, right? And join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thy hand. So this is a prophecy of the reunification of the two kingdoms into one, right? And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, will thou not shew unto shew us what thou meanest by these, right? They say, okay, man, what does this mean? Say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, right? Representative of, Joseph had his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, right? Which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his fellows. So the northern kingdom, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, the head of the southern kingdom, and will make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. And the sticks whereon thou writest shall be in thy hand before their eyes. And say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen. And what do we have in Romans? You got the children of Israel, right? Also who were spread among the heathen, right? Because all of the northern kingdom didn't go into captivity in Arsaret, as we call it, right? There was you still had some in the northern kingdom that were scattered throughout Jewry among the southern kingdom, like Anna as well, that we read in the book of Luke, for an example. It says, and say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and will bring them into their own land. Go ahead. Scroll down, Baba Kasha.
Salaki.
It's okay, King. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. And one king shall be king to them all. And that's talking about Yahweh Shai. And peep this. And they shall be no more two nations,
God.
neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. So you got the prophecy of Yahweh Shai coming and reconciling the two kingdoms, which were called two different nations, the Gentiles, right, and the Jews, and reconciling them into one nation, one stick, one kingdom, all under Yahweh Shai. And that's what that's going into in Romans 11. You got it, King.
God. God. Mighty breakdown. Yeah, that's right. All praise to the Most High. That's right.
All
That's
praise.
right. All right, let's get back into it, Lord willing. Back at Romans 11. All praise to the Most High. So it says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles for to provoke them unto jealousy. Now, let me get Romans chapter 9 real quick, just so we can see that through their fall, that fall is not going into falling from the promises, right? So it's not, you can't jump for joy and say, yep, see, they fell and now this and that. It's not disannulling what we've already proved through the scriptures that the Most High said it would take something impossible happening for something else impossible to happen, meaning it would take the seas and the rivers and paraphrasing everything to be taken from under his control for Israel to be cast away as a nation, for them to no longer be his people, right? So let's just read Romans chapter 9. We'll just read verses 3 and 4. It says, for I wish that myself were accursed from Hamashiach, for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh. So, Salaki, we know that this is talking about Paul's brethren, his kinsmen, according to the flesh. Remember, we read at the top of Romans chapter 11 that Paul was giving you his genealogy. He's of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. He's an Israelite. It says, who are Israelites? To whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the services of God and the promises. So when we go back to Romans chapter 11, you got to understand that they haven't fell from the promises, right? And just because those Israelites that fell who weren't the first to go off fell didn't mean they was falling from the promises, but it says salvation coming to the Gentiles. So therefore, through Hamashiach coming, through his sacrifice, Now those Israelites who are going off into idolatry, going off into all these different customs, going off into pagan worship and things like that. Let's get First Corinthians real quick, 12. Now those Israelites who grew up within these different things, following these other gods, now salvation can come unto them. It says Romans, First Corinthians chapter 12 from the top. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, Paul's brethren, I would not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles. How? Carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Now let's go into this real quick. This is very important that we understand. Oh, Salaki, Salaki. Let me go back. Go back. G1484. It says, i.e., a tribe, especially a foreign one, usually by implication pagan, Gentile, heathen nation, people. So you got to understand is not every time that you see Gentile does it mean that it's of actual other nations. And what Paul is showing you here is the proof of that because he's telling you, let's go back. Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. Now he's talking to his brethren, which we have established through the precepts that are the Israelites. So an Israelite can be a Gentile. An Israelite can become a Gentile by actions of following actual bloodline Gentiles. So when we go back to Romans 11 and we're at verse 12, verse 11, salvation is coming to the Gentiles. Now you can put it all together and you can understand that if salvation has been written from the beginning of time for Israel, only for Israel, we know that the Most High doesn't change. Let's get this real quick. Luke chapter 1. And we're going to go verse 67. And his father Zacharias was filled with the Holy Spirit and prophesied, saying, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people, and hath raised up an horn of salvation for us, that's Hamashiach, Wamalak Yahushai, in the house of his servant David. We know Yahushai came from the loins of David, and as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began. So this is something that's been ordained since the world began. We see in Isaiah chapter 46 and verse 10 that the Most High decided the end from the beginning. Then when you go down to verse 13 in that same chapter, in Isaiah 46, is telling you that Israel was always written to be saved, that salvation was going to be for Israel. It says that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. Right? That is what salvation is. Israel being saved from their enemies, and it says to perform the mercy promised to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant. So it just all goes together. It all ties back in the understanding that in that Romans 11 and verse 11, that Gentiles is talking about Israelite Gentiles. You got something before we read on, King?
Let's just grab a one quick precept. Let's go to John 11 and verse 50. It's also touching on that, on why that provoking. Right, and those two nations to be reconciled back to one, right? Book of John, chapter 11 and 50. Nor consider that it is expedient, that it is Salaki expedient for us that one man, being Yahweh Shai, should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not.
Mm.
Right? So we know that this is talking about Yahweh Shai reconciling the whole nation as far as the northern and the southern kingdom back together. And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yahweh Shai shall die for that nation. Look, and not for that nation only. So it's like, okay, hold on. Well, it said two nations, but we just read before in Ezekiel 37, right, 15 on down, that we were called two nations. So not that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad, right? And if we go back to that Romans 9 and 7, right, on down, we see that everybody's not a child of God. So it can't be talking about the other nations that are not Israelites, right? It says Romans 9 and 7, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted as the seed. And we know the children of promise have to go from Isaac to Jacob. Ishmael ain't a part of that. So, those are not the children of God, right? The children of God are the children of promise who come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So back to that 11 and 50 in John, we know that that's specifically talking about reconciliation to the children of God, as you see right here in verse 52, and not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad, right? And that goes back to that Romans 11. You got it, King.
God. And just real quick, a precept on that gathering from us being scattered. We know Deuteronomy 28 and 64 tell us that we will be scattered amongst all the nations, right? We know that James chapter 1 and verse 1, he was writing to those who have been, the 12 tribes who have been scattered abroad. Let's go into Jeremiah chapter 16 real quick and just read verse 14. Well, we're going to read a couple verses. It says, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall be no more said, the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and all the lands whither he had driven them. You see, that's just lining up with everything that the Most High said as far as us being scattered abroad. And I will bring them again. We just read in John 11 and 52 that he would gather us, bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. So we will be scattered abroad, but it's already been prophesied that no matter what, the Most High is going to gather us from wherever we may be. All praise to the Most High. All right, let's get back to it. Let's get back to it. We got 2:33 on the clock. Might have to make this a part two, but Lord willing, we, just keep going. All praise to the Most High. See where it ends up. Romans 11 and 12. Now, if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? You got it, King.
God. Now this is going into chiefly what we just went into as far as when it says for but my bad, scroll down a little. All right, there it is. My bad. I see it. I see it. Now, if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentile, how much more their fullness? How much more their fullness if they're brought back into the fold? Because we just read that Yahweh Shai is coming to reconcile and bring the Gentiles who are winning away into idolatry back into the fold, because these prophecies had to happen. So therefore, the Israelites, that remnant, once again, this is all talking back about that remnant kid who was predestinated could get salvation. It's not talking about the other nations. Read on.
God. It says, for I speak to you Gentiles as I am, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify mine office.
And this is going into what the brother just brought out in that First Corinthians 12. Who are these Gentiles? Those who are turned away to dumb idols, who needed to be reconciled back into the fold through the sacrifice of a Mashiach woman like Yahushua. And that's why he was provoking the Jews who were in Jewry, who didn't believe on Yahushua. And they was trying to keep the law, but they wasn't believing on Yahushua, that they needed Yahushua for salvation. You got it, King.
God. Con, all praises. Reading on. It says, if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Right? So if any of Israel is to be cast away, what is going to be the result thereof? Is casting away those who fell first going to be, what does it say? It says, be the reconciling of the world. What shall the receiving of them be but life from dead? So we got to understand and keep everything in its proper context, that this is not emphatically in any way, shape, or form is just saying for the casting away. Even let's just entertain, even if the Most High did for a second cast Israel away, right? Let's entertain that. Does that mean now, therefore, the rest of the world is he going back on everything he said? Did Yahushua speak just to speak when he said he only comes for the children of Israel? Is everything that's been written, all the prophecies, just now just unfolded just because we see another time period where Israel is being punished? Remember, we talked about how Israel would be given a law, given commandments to do, fall short of that, be punished, but then be reconciled over and over and over again. So just even understanding the totality of what the Bible is and what's taking place will help tremendously with your understanding of Paul's letters that are hard to be understood. You got something, King?
I do, but let's do this. Let's, Lord willing, let's stop right here because on this second part, we got like 40 precepts that we can, Lord willing, go into that really break down that reconciliation, that grafting in, all of that ties directly into this. And we got camp. We got camp. This was a pre-camp lesson.
God,
So all praise to the Most High, Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Lord willing, this was edifying. Man, it's a beautiful thing to be able to go into these precepts and to get that understanding and to cut and chop down false doctrine that'll make you believe that you don't got to keep the law, make you believe in that Yahweh Shai is the minister of sin and that he did away with the law, make you believe that Paul is talking and trying to bring everybody who's other nations into the fold, right? And to make you think that Christ came for everybody.
that's right.
These are false doctrines that have to be done away with because they're not biblical. These scriptures don't teach any of those things, right? That's not the word of God doesn't teach those. The word of God doesn't teach those things. So we're here to dispel those false doctrines and Lord willing ultimately to compel the lost sheep, just how we had to come. Hey, we were Gentiles once, turned
That's
away
right.
to those dumb idols as we were led. We wasn't always in the truth, and these are the reasons why we go out, Lord willing, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai on the highways and byways and do the work. Hey, while we doing these lives, these stream yards, while we're trying to earnestly teach our people, while we're studying and show ourselves approving and Lord willing being built up mightier and mightier so that we could ultimately, Lord willing, make the kingdom, man. And we want y'all so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans of indigenous descent on the Western Hemisphere, chiefly as well, to come back to your heritage and come back to the truth of the Bible and stay far away from the lies. You got them a lot.
God, that's right. That's right. Beautifully said by the brother. I'm going to get a closing precept, and this is going to be Joel chapter 2 and verse 27. You got to keep this in mind, right? You can't, as we reiterated time and time again, you can't be beguiled by these false doctrines. You can't do away with everything that's been said in the so-called Old Testament just because you get into the so-called New and you start to read things. And some things can be hard to be understood. We were warned by Peter that Paul will be hard to be understood. But there's, how should I say this? Because every precept is equally important. There's pillar precepts. There's foundational precepts that you have to have down in your spirit that will help you to not be tossed to and fro. All right. And we know that the Most High does not change. That's Malachi chapter 3 and verse 6. So if you're reading a characteristic of the Most High or something that the Most High ordained, when you get off into the so-called New Testament, whoever writings that you're reading, you gotta keep in mind and keep it a pillar in your mind, foundational precept in your mind that Yahweh does not change. I'm gonna read Joel 2 and 27. It says, "And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else,
Mm.
and my people shall never be ashamed." So just because the Most High created all people, created all things, doesn't mean that He's the God of all people. He said that He's the God of Israel, that He's in the midst of Israel and none else. So if He's ordained all these promises, He's ordained the kingdom, He's ordained the covenants, the services of God, all to Israel beforehand, before the so-called New Testament was even being written. You can't get into the New Testament and think any of that has gone away or any of that will change. All praise to the Most High. You got something, King?
Man, La King, all praise to the Most High, and this is a beautiful situation. And man, once again, hey brother Nakamaya O.F.I.
God. O.F.I, Sergeant Emmanuel, all praises.
Kwam Yashala, y'all. Hey, Israel, hey, if you keep the 7-day Shabbat, you know what I'm saying? Today is the Sabbath, the Shabbat. Hey, abstain from all wickedness. Hey, keep the ordinances. Ain't no buying, no selling, no cooking, no cleaning, no pleasures. Hey, you should be watching videos. You should be studying. Hey, brothers, Lord willing, you're raised up by the Spirit to go out to camp to teach. Hey, if the Most High hasn't put the Spirit on you yet or built you up in the Spirit yet to teach, hey, go out to camp to learn. You know, gather together, O nation, not desired. You know, we should be earnestly contending for the faith, right? Not just on the Shabbat, but on every day. So you know, this is once again all praise to the Most High Yahweh Shema Mashiach Wamalak Yahweh Shai Shabbat Shalom Kwam Yashala.
All praise Yahweh Shem Shai, Shabbat Shalom, Kwam Yashala. Shalom, Israel.